I'm working on a knitting project, and this is what it will look like, hopefully, when I'm done with it. This comes from the book New Knitting, Fast, Fun, and Easy by Florence Temko that I bought way back in the 80s or so. And I find it to be a very useful book. In fact, the sweater I'm producing is actually the same as this one shown on this cover, although I think it's so much prettier in this version right here. Now, the yarn that I'm using is, I'm sure it's obsolete now, it's called a Lynette yarn, and it's made of linen, acrylic, nylon, and rayon all combined into this rather textured type weave. Here's a better view of it, which I think is quite pretty. So doing the very important thing of checking your gauge before you start, I actually did this very systematically this time. I am using I happen to be using for this project size 8 knitting needles. These are my Brittany's. I love them. And I put 20 stitches on those needles to create this sample, 20 stitches. And then when I bound it off and I looked at it and I measured it, it's 5.5 inches wide. And so here's my math. Pink linen sweater, Brittany size 8 needles, knitted a gauge, 20 stitches, and that gave me 5.5 inches of width. Therefore, there are 3.64 stitches per inch. Now my target, being a large woman, according to this recipe here for this sweater, I am a large. I need to be 19.5 inches wide. Therefore, I know I need 72 stitches according to my calculations. And actually, the recipe in here calls for 74 stitches. Now, she was using a different yarn. She was using the same size needles. But it's always important to figure out how airy you want your sweater to be, how much air do you want in your sweater, and that determines the needle size. Sometimes you don't want it to be this airy, but I decided that this is how I wanted the sweater to be. And so the gauge is always good to test to see whether the texture, the final texture is what you want also. So anyway, here we go. This is the basic approach I'm going to be taking for this sweater according to these instructions. I found it's nice to create my own little shortcut cheat sheet, although her instructions were fantastically simple. She says with these size 8 needles, you actually start, here's the back of the sweater, we are starting actually with size 6 needles at the 72 stitches. We're binding on 72 stitches, and we are going to be working in rib stitch for 2.5 inches. And that would be your knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way across one row. The next row, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way around across that row, etc. for 2.5 inches. And at that point, we are going to be adding 4 inches on that final rib row. And we are going to be switching to the larger needles. Okay, so now with the larger needles, we are going to be doing stockinette stitch for 14 inches. Now stockinette stitch is just knit 1 row, purl the next row, knit the next row, purl the next row. Keep alternating rows, knit and purl rows until you reach your 14 inches. So it will be 16.5 inches altogether. Now at this point we are going to start these increase. See this diagonal line that indicates an increase. And to perform this increase, you just need to add a stitch every knit row for 7 rows. And so I have a little cheat thing here reminding me that I need to do this plus 7, and I've got the dotted lines. This is just my little own little shorthand to indicate that I'm doing it in every knit row. as opposed to this one where I'm sticking it all into one row. Those 4 stitches, I'm just trying to stick them evenly into that one row. Okay, and then once you've done that, now it's easy sailing all the way to the top of your back, because it's just doing another 8 inches of stockinette stitch. There's your back. Now the front is exactly the same as the back. You do the same knitting with your rib, create your rib stitch for 2.5 inches, then you switch, then you do your increase, the 4 stitches increase, then you switch to your larger needles, and then you go all the way up and you do your +7 business to get this increase here. Now at that point, this is the only tricky part, is that you basically split your stitches into 2. You leave 42 on and you stick 42 onto the side, onto a holder, because you're going to get to them later. Okay, now at this point what you do is you keep decreasing every row, and I've got to tell you this exactly, because our target is to go from the 42 stitches down to 26 at the very end, which will give you more, space there for your neck in between. Let me just read this precisely here. It says, on each following knit row, decrease along both center edges as described until the stitches remain, the 26 stitches remain. Okay, so it's on each knit row that you're doing that. Okay, and then you bind off loosely in pattern, and there is the front. You've just finished the front. How easy can this be, right? And so, hopefully, before the summer actually starts getting hot, I will have this created. I will have a sweater made of this material that will be light and airy and suitable for this summer. There it is. Yay! We'll see. Cheers!